Hello everyone, welcome back to the Modelling Novice. In this video, it's episode 6 of my fir tree halt build, and it's time to get this hard standing fixed once and for all. So, part 2 of the hard standing. Now, I had initially planned for this just to be one episode, but because I've got more than 50 minutes worth of footage, I've decided to split it in half. So, where were we? So last time, we had just finished putting the second attempt down, which was using fresh clay, and unfortunately, as that dried, that also cracked. It did, however, stick in place. So, I think I can rescue it. So let's see how I got on with that. After doing some digging online on some model rail forums, it looks like cracking is not uncommon. One of the issues I have is that air dry clay shrinks when it dries, and the thicker the clay, the more it shrinks. I'm also doing this work in winter in a room that has no radiator and tends to be quite humid. I'm not exactly sure why that would be a problem, but I wonder if the room was warmer and drier, the outer shell would go harder before the underside gets the opportunity to shrink as it sets. My saving grace is that the second attempt has stayed stuck to the baseboard and underlay and is much more solid in texture. A quick word of advice: if you are planning to use a rechargeable or battery operated tool, make sure your device is fully charged beforehand. Don't ask me how I know, because I will totally lie and tell you that I didn't forget to charge mine. So, whilst I wait, I sand down some of the lumps and bumps to create a flatter surface. I then use the now recharged rotary tool with sanding attachment to create a channel above the cracks to fill with clay. I still had about a quarter of a packet left, and I made sure to wrap it tightly with cling film to keep the moisture in. After vacuuming up all of the dust from the sanding, it was time to finally fill in the cracks. I tried to press in as firm as possible to get the clay in the whole depth of the cracks and to keep the top surface as smooth as possible. I have no idea if this will work or make the problem worse. I tried to smooth out the fresh clay where I have filled the gaps, which should provide an even surface to work on. With that finished, let's jump forward in time to a few days later and see the results. Well, it actually worked. Thank goodness for that. Now unfortunately I've had to lose where I have imprinted my engine shed, although I did actually slightly have it catching on the rails here, so that's not the end of the world. I can sand that down a bit, I can make it a bit flatter, and I can certainly work with it, but vast majority of the cracks are all completely filled in. There are a couple of tiny little ones here and there, but that's not an issue. Like I said, I think sanding it down, I think getting it a bit flatter, and I think it's good to go. I'm going to say a little bit of touching up here and there, but my fix has worked. I can't quite believe it, to be honest. I genuinely thought I was going to be giving up at this point and going back to the drawing board, but it's good, and it's nice and solid too. Not the neatest in the world, but again, like I said, bit of sanding down, flatten it off. I think that's going to look just nice. Right then, I think I better get cracking with the next part of the job. This has given me a huge relief. It isn't perfect, and it may take a bit of work to get right, but I finally have strong enough foundations to carry on. I continue the task of sanding down, which should hopefully smooth out the repairs and make them less obvious. I still plan to do more work here, but I need to get the surface flat to rail level before continuing to fettle with the hard standing. My plan is to add a thin layer of clay where the shed will sit to act as foundations, but not until I'm ready to start scenic work. For now, I just want to make sure everything looks okay and the trains will run on the rails properly. With sanding down done, I am now going to do a little bit more painting. I start with the window frames by applying a white base coat to the inner section using a fine detail brush. I'm trying not to overspill on the stone here, which will be even more important when I apply the main colour to this section. The inner frames on the shed itself are also given a white base coat to ensure the top colour gets a bright and even finish. I then do a bit more dry brushing on the rock surfaces. A couple of days later, I come back and paint the frames green. I'm just using the Hobbycraft Alpine Green here, no mixing to mute or naturalise the colour. This is meant to look like painted metal. With a steady hand and 2 or 3 coats, the frames look great. With the painting done, I now turn my attention to the roof. I measure up the tile card sheets and start measuring and trimming with a knife. My cutting isn't the neatest and my penknife control is atrocious, but I try to keep the main section whole. I have to make incisions to wrap the sheet around the vents, but it all seems to be okay. A generous layer of PVA glue will stick everything down. With a bit of fettling, the roof tiles are now down. This looks a bit garish at the moment, but once the accessories are all painted and everything is weathered, I imagine this should look much nicer. For now though, I think this is a good place to take stock of everything and wrap things up. And with that, this episode draws to a close. I really thought that this was going to defeat me at one point, but sometimes you just need to take a step back and take a breather before you go again feeling fresh. Many problems are fixable. Sometimes you can't always see the solution immediately, but when the emotions of stress are at their highest, usually, you need to take that moment to have a bit of clarity, find your feet again, and go in with some fresh focus. If something like this does happen to you, don't be afraid to ask for help either. You know, there are plenty of ways to do that. Just focus on something else. At the end of the day, this is toy trains on steroids for adults. It's, nothing more than that, really. I've put myself under pressure by filming this and posting it online, but that's my choice. So I've got to live with that decision. Also, window frames. They've been painted nicely in a lovely bright green. So hopefully at some point in the future, I'll show off finishing that job. But next episode is going to be a big task I'm really have been putting off, and that is installing point motors and the system to go along with that. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to the next job. So that's all that's left for me to say is, if you are a beginner, I hope I have inspired you to have a go despite my failures today. And if you are an experienced modeller, I hope you had a very good laugh at my expense. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.